Hello Australia and welcome to the BAP. It is the 4th of February 2018. My name is Franco and I am poorly prepared for today's show because I have been out drinking. I said it, I put it out there, I'm absolved of any responsibility. Joining me today is Dean.
Yes, no Jason.
No Jason.
So the mantle of poorly preparedness must fall upon us both.
Well, I'm going to take full responsibility for poor preparedness because you've at least brought notes. So
I
that
have.
sort of
I've
signifies...
got paper with squiggles on it. It could be anything. We didn't have a show last week
No, we didn't.
because there was new stadium cricket shenanigans going on.
Yes.
What's the new stadium like when there's a game being played there? For I have not experienced this yet.
From a seating point of view, it's just the seats are standard sort of stadium sort of seating, so your knees are pretty much smashing the person in front of you. But that's to be expected in the modern day format of stadium seating. But the view of the pitch, perfect.
Did you have a fish burger?
I did not have.
Did you see them on Facebook?
I actually
Someone posted a Facebook photo of what was inside a fish burger. It was like 2 fish fingers inside a large bun with a lot of space, a tiny amount of lettuce and a tiny bit of mayo, and they were very upset.
It is fair to say the food experience was poor. I mean, I typically don't expect... I don't typically get hungry, so I don't really worry about the food side of things.
No, I'm a big drinker when I'm watching sports, not so much an eater.
I'm technically on the liquid diet. So for me, it's more important that I can get to the toilet and to the bar quickly and seamlessly. And from that point of view, perfect. I could get from my seat to the toilet and back, or to my seat to the bar and back very quickly and not miss much of the action compared to the old Subiaco Stadium woes.
Yep.
So that was all perfect. And look, they've got lots of food eateries and I'm sure they'll sort out, like, for instance, when I went up later in the day, some of the food venues had run out of food. There were long queues, but I think that's more of a... They're sort of bedding in their processes and they'll sort them out quite easily. There's no structural problems with the venue itself in that regard.
I imagine if there were, if this dodgy fish burger is to be taken as an example of, quality control issues, maybe if some things were very good compared to other ones which were, not as much value for money, then they would sell out much faster. Yeah, well... So it would exacerbate the problems. I don't know. That was the only funny thing I know about the stadium is the fish burgers are not to be had.
Well, when I went up to so I did quite a walk to find food that was available and didn't have a massive queue. And I found this little venue that was only selling sausage rolls and meat pies. And I saw the prices and they were as advertised and as lambasted in the papers. Ridiculous. Like a meat pie, $10.20.
Whew.
Yeah. And apparently
was it a Mrs.
wrong.
Max?
Yes.
Well, at least you didn't have to take it back, I guess.
And same, I think the sausage rolls were meant to be like $8.50 or something.
Whew.
I didn't have much choice, and plus I got my ticket for free, and I'd offered to buy the person who got me the ticket for free their food, so I just...
That's how they get you.
I wore it.
Tickets are very cheap, and they're like, I'll have 2 pies, Frank, and you're like, oh.
But they didn't charge me those prices, so the sausage rolls were only $5.60 each. Still quite expensive, but...
Not as advertised, yeah.
Yes, so maybe it was technically a glitch as they claimed the prices being advertised on the boards.
You'd think, though, if you were going to notice something was wrong, it would be the prices on the boards. They're pretty publicly visible.
Not quite buying what they were purporting there, but I wasn't charged the high price, so I wasn't complaining.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, I think the stadium, from a spectator's point of view, it's great.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Next weekend, we're going to go watch the AFL Women's Collingwood versus Fremantle.
Indeed.
That should be fucking awesome.
I'm looking forward to it.
Mighty Magpie Army there. I'll be representing.
And I'll be representing the mighty, ferocious female Dockers.
Maybe they'll have
the last hope for the Fremantle.
Maybe they'll have better luck than the men's team, eh? Be nice. You could maybe get some silverware for that cabinet.
I'm hoping so. Something that's going there besides dust and scorn. In other news, it's been some interesting times for Netflix viewing. Finally, Altered Carbon came out.
I was really... so I caught up with Jason on Friday night after some work drinks, and then we caught up to do our usual board game nights and stuff. And then after that, mid-game, he asked me, hey, when's Altered Carbon come out? And I was like, I think it might be the 2nd. And he's like, that's tonight. I'm like, oh, okay, I think it's out now. So we checked, and it was... And I ended up watching it till about 2 a.m, the first 3 episodes or something.
Oh,
wow. And I was really hesitant. It's one of Jason's favourite books that he lent to me.
Same as me.
And it became one of my favourite books because it was just so amazing and well thought out. And it takes this premise of what happens if you can back up a human mind onto a computer system,
Yes.
and it just runs with that, and all this stuff comes out of it, and it establishes this world. And I was really nervous they would mess that up. I have since watched the entire season in 3 different sittings. I think I watched 3 episodes, 4 episodes. And it pretty much follows the book very, very faithfully. There's a couple of bits that are not from the book, I think. I haven't read it in 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I read the book in probably 2002, so it's like...
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't read it in a while. It might even be more than 10 years now that you point that out. It's probably more like 15. But it was all pretty well put together, and I was a big fan of it. And I am curious if they're going to do more.
Right.
Because there are 2 more books. Broken Angels, and I can't remember what the third one's called off the top of my head. Like The Withering or something. But the second book is 30 odd years in the future from the first one. And, obviously, features an entirely different cast.
Yes.
Because people can be backed up on computer systems and they get beamed to planets and put into new bodies. It would be different actors.
Indeed.
So it would be an interesting, like American Horror Story does anthology stories.
Yes.
It would be interesting to have these seasons where it's a similar world, some of the same characters, but completely different actors trying to portray that. I think that would be really interesting if Netflix can pull it off. But the production values of this were pretty good.
They were good. I
There
think
was one bit I'm going to pick on in the pilot when a police sky car was landing that just looked cheap as shit. But
yeah, that looks shit.
there was one bit that I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I obviously ran out of VFX budget for that.
And even the way they crashed it into it just seemed like that wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
It's no purpose at all. In terms of the way they put it all together, it seems like it's a mash, and I've only seen one episode so far, a mixture of Total Recall and Blade Runner put together in terms of the way the cinematography and the style.
Yeah, I reckon that's about right. There are some reasonable shots of the sort of the cityscapes and stuff, which I thought were very Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the advertising reminded me a little bit of a Paul Verhoeven movie, and they did Poe, the hotel really,
yes.
the AI hotel, is fucking awesome. The actor they've chosen for that and the way he portrays it, is just amazing as the embodiment of Edgar Allan Poe. I loved everything about that. Every time he's on the screen, he stole the scene for me.
So he's on further episodes?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Because he was a lot of fun. I did notice you have to pay a lot of attention to dialogue. And I'm wondering, for people who are not familiar with the book, how they're tracking with the show, because there's a lot of information being poured out. And I don't know.
Yeah, there's some... I thought that too. When there's a couple of scenes where, even in the pilot, where they show you stuff which is important for later.
Yes.
So they talk about a couple of the various drugs that exist in this time. He buys a knife, I think, and it's laced with this... I can't remember. Reaper. It's laced with Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important. And they explain to you what Reaper is at the time, and they explain to you how the stack chips and stuff work. And it all comes back. And if you don't pay attention, you might be like, "Oh, I don't get this."
Yeah, because I don't remember. I've only watched the pilot, and they were talking about how there's some sort of the main character Kovic has, and I'm sure this manifests more as it progresses, but he was a disciple of some sort of renegade lead, and I don't remember that.
That's not in the book,
right? Okay,
that was the bit that I didn't get. There's a couple of scenes where they're showing these terrorist armies training, and the envoys work for them. In the books, based on my memory, at least, Takeshi Kovacs was an envoy working for the United Nations.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's a soldier working for the UN, and there's an operation that goes bad, and a fuck ton of soldiers die. He's one of the only survivors. It's basically the same plot. And all the ones that are killed using this virus that also fucks up your electronic stack, and they can't restore you. And that is still true in the book. They have I think it's episode 6 is a flashback episode where they go back through and show it's a whole episode about his training and how he got to be there and what happened and stuff.
Yeah.
I actually one thing I loved about the show was the way that they was the performances from the two Takeshi Kovacs, so the white big muscular dude playing
Yeah.
it most of the time, and then his flashback version played by a Japanese actor, and they're both amazing, and they have recurring parts. They do different flashbacks, and they weave the story together.
And the way that seemingly the directors made them make you believe they are the same person.
Yeah,
Even though their skins are totally different.
Yeah.
The way they act, you believe they are the same consciousness.
yeah, it's
between-
really, and that's why I'm hopeful that if they do a second season, it'll be really interesting to see if the director can do this, because it was amazing. Jason actually asked me not to talk about Altered Carbon in too much detail because he wants to wax lyrical about it next week too. But I said it would be okay because I doubted you would have watched all of it by now. So
No.
there's
I only watched the
there's
first
stuff
one.
that comes up. But I am. It's another one of those ones where Netflix for me knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if this was my personal technology issue, but I found some of the dialogue hard to hear, and I don't know if that's because my TV can't bring the audio up.
Oddly enough, I had my TV set about twice as loud as I normally have it. I noticed this when I turned my PlayStation on later, whenever, and everything was like really fucking loud. I was like, oh, this isn't normally. It was vastly higher, so I think there might be something about the audio being a bit low.
Yeah,
But maybe that was a Netflix thing as well. I don't know, but
Maybe.
I had mine turned up a lot so I could hear everything.
because I know the conversations between the female police officer and him
Ortega, yeah.
were describing a lot of important detail, and I couldn't hear it. And I'm trying to listen because I knew this is important.
Yeah.
I was very frustrated.
Yeah, look, it's well worth watching. I didn't have any complaints, which is rare because I like to complain about things.
Which maybe is where we should.
It's a
head
good
towards
segue
that.
to Star Trek, isn't it?
To Discovery.
So we didn't have a show last week.
Nope.
So there are 2 back-to-back Discovery episodes. From memory, last week's one was where they revealed that the Empress was
Philippa Georgiou.
Philippa Georgiou,
Mm-hmm.
and they ate a Kelpian. That was my highlight. That was the thing I remember about the episode. I don't remember much more of it being in any way important.
Well, we also found out that the security officer was a Klingon.
Yeah, that was shit though. There's that the one where he tried to kill himself for not being Klingon enough?
I think
That bugged me. Maybe it was. Yeah. He's a bit shit. I mean, the worst thing for me is he never... Ash Tyler and Michael Burnham have zero chemistry whenever they try and portray love scenes. But even in general, it would have been more interesting if he had just been a guy with PTSD. I would have found that more to have like a broken, wounded soldier. And this ties into my complaint with the next episode, with fucking mustache twirling Captain Lorca, like just all those shades of grey torn away, and he's just a villain, a throwaway villain at that.
Yeah, that was the worst part, that he got thrown away so cheaply in the end.
Yeah, like a completely devoid of emotion, devoid of impact death scene. And then the other thing that bugged the hell out of me was Michael Burnham's decision to randomly save a marauding despot cannibal who eats Kelpians and just pull her onto the Discovery and take her back to the Prime Universe.
Yeah, I struggled with that. It's like, how's this going to work? That Emperor had no redeeming qualities.
Yeah. Nothing about her was in any way good. And the captain of Discovery is a Kelpian, who she's going to view as her next meal.
Especially when she gave such the good get out of jail card of leave him behind, I'll give you by time.
Yeah, by time.
No worries, see you later.
Yeah, I was there was weird. That episode was weird. The direction and the cinematography I fucking loved, and the pacing was really good. Like it was really well paced. It was really well played out. The performances were all quite good, but the writing was once again just fucking terrible. Like it's I get bugged. Like obviously they've got these story beats that they've like fleshed out a story beforehand. Not even fleshed out. They're bare bones the story. We want this to happen, this to happen, this to happen, this to happen, and we'll flesh it out later. And then they've never come back to really flesh out the story, because some shit that happens, you're like, that doesn't even make sense now. Like, why did they save the Empress?
Well, going back to Michael Burnham and her love interest, I don't think anyone could actually portray an aspect that they could be considered a true love interest. I can understand Michael Burnham wanting to have sexual relations with people, but to have a love interest, she doesn't seem to portray anyone who it says has emotion.
Yeah, well, that's the bit I found weird too. He was obviously a Klingon from day one, and I also thought Captain Lorca was from the Mirror Universe from very early on. So there's been very few surprises for me in the show, but human woman raised by Vulcans, seemingly devoid of emotion, falls in love with Secret Klingon Man. They're pretty different worlds. Secret Klingon Man and fake Vulcan.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of things you're going to have in common. Maybe this is a case of opposites attracting, but they had no chemistry. So I found it all very hard to take.
Yeah.
And then they get back 9 months after they left, and the war's pretty much lost.
I don't know, that piques my curiosity. I'd like to see what they do with that.
I fucking hope there's not a reset button at the end of this season. We've got 2 episodes to go before they're done. I'm pretty sure something time travel reset.
Oh no,
is going to be how it ends.
Not.
None of it happened. I really hope that doesn't happen.
Well, they're going to have to because they've got a spore drive technology that is not part of the law.
Yeah.
So
that also was weird. How they were like, there's only one mycelium network, and all the parallel universes connected via it. And if it is destroyed in any one universe, all life ceases to exist across every universe. And in my head, I'm thinking, so there's an infinite number of universes connected to a single point of failure, and it hasn't failed already. Like an infinite number of things that could go wrong. All right, but wrong is the one I'm focusing on. And something hasn't gone wrong yet, but given enough time, infinite monkeys with infinite typewriters will produce Shakespeare. The writers of Star Trek Discovery, no, they don't. They're just not writing quality material.
One thing I didn't get was, the science engineer who actually... Stamets. I thought, how they were both in the network trying to find their way out?
Yeah.
I thought the good guy actually
woke
found
up
himself...
in the bad guy's body?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden...
It was not clear. Because they both woke up at the same time, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I strongly felt that they were portraying that they got swapped.
I wasn't sure what had happened then. You saw the good one wake up first, and then the bad one wake up, and I was like, either they're very much more connected than we think they are, or the evil one was lying, and he was never stuck in there, or they've swapped bodies. Like it was like this thing. I was like, oh, what's happening here? And then in the very next episode, you're like, oh, nothing's happening there.
It was really shit.
It's just badly filmed.
Yes.
Poor editing has led to confusion, not a plot point.
Because I thought it would have been interesting to see that.
That would have been interesting. It would have given Michael another ally inside the ship.
I'm wondering if they snipped out some filming.
I don't know.
Because it just doesn't make any sense. I
know that they had to recut. CBS decided that the end of season episode... There was that one back before the season when they both arrived at the planet at the same time. That was supposed to be the end of the season, end of mid-season break. And then they brought an episode forward, but they had to do a whole bunch of recuts because they had to take some stuff out that wasn't supposed to happen yet and bring to and fuck around with it. And maybe they had to recut other things as well by messing around with stuff. I'm also left wondering if Jason Isaacs just wanted out, because the way they wrote his character at the beginning, shades of grey, to the ending where I was like, this just seems like you guys have thrown the character out the window because he's destined to die. I don't know. It seems a bit... I know it had a troubled production. I know yes. Brian Fuller left.
Which is ominous.
Yeah. And maybe other stuff changed along the way.
You can sort of see where overarching where the great idea was and then where the execution was stifled along the way.
Yeah, I don't know how much intention they had to go into the Mirror Universe season 1. I hope not much, because without established characters, firstly, it's an overplayed trope in Star Trek. As much as I love Deep Space Nine, and some of those Mirror Universe episodes are fun,
yeah,
but really, there's like fucking 6 of them, and then there's a bunch in Enterprise, and like it just you don't need to keep doing it. It was fine the first time when they did it on the original series. That was actually a really good episode. And then, well, for the original series, it wasn't too ham-fisted Shatner's acting. And then they did like one in Deep Space Nine. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then, like 6 years of one a year, it's like, what is this, a Christmas special now or something?
Well, I like the idea of having a troubled captain. And then all of a sudden, it's a cheap cop-out of, no, he's from the Mirror Universe. That's why he's evil.
That's my hassle with it. I really thought the idea of having someone who is a good wartime captain because he's willing to do what needs to be done to get the job done, but is maybe not necessarily a good captain.
Yes.
So they've given him command of the ship, and it became obvious because the Admiral lady was going to, relieve him of command until he engineered her being captured by the Klingons, and And there was all this stuff going on behind the scenes. They're like, oh, there's all this interesting, and they're just, oh yeah, we're throwing all that out.
Yep, he's just from a mirror universe.
Yeah,
Always evil.
always
Not
evil.
Starfleet, and then they overplayed this is what it means to be Starfleet.
Yeah,
With Michael Burnham not wanting to.
yeah. I thought Saru gave a good speech. You know, this is our maiden voyage. This is where I do
was
this as
great.
a crew. I thought that was a really good moment. There was a stirring speech there. So some of the writing was good. It was just the basic fucking premise was a bit off kilter. 2 episodes to go though before this pain is over.
That you've subjected yourself after many times.
I really want it to be good, and it's not. I love Star Trek. I grew up on it, and I want this to be good, and it isn't. And it's like if Altered Carbon had been shit, I'd be equally disappointed because it's something I love that they've ruined. But they didn't ruin it. Whoever's in charge of running that show and doing the writing, get them to do the Star Trek from now on.
Is it fair to say that Deep Space Nine gave you a glimpse of something that could show you that Star Trek could even be even more than what it is?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and also Babylon 5. Ronald D. Moore, after leaving Deep Space Nine, I think at the same time Voyager was airing, started doing Babylon 5. And that, all up until it was announced as being cancelled, was fucking amazing, the whole thing. He is a little obsessed with religion, which I have, it's not my favourite part of his stuff.
Got a bit out of hand in the final season of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, did. Got a bit out of hand in the final season of Battlestar Galactica as well.
Although, if anyone's seen that documentary where Shatner goes and views the captains,
Yep.
you could see that was right up Cisco's avenue because he is way off the reservoir.
Yeah, he's all kinds of special, that man.
And he would have loved to go down the Bajoran religious prophet stuff.
Yeah.
Majorly.
I think it's interesting, like you allegedly also season 2 of Star Trek Discovery is about the clash between science and faith. And I think that is potentially, it's been, again, it's another trope that's been done to death in Star Trek. But it is sort of interesting in the time we currently live, particularly in America, particularly under Trump. Oh, there was an anti-Trump thing in Star Trek I noticed as well.
Oh, was there?
Can't remember what it was. They made some comment and it was like ripping shit on Trump's campaign promises. I'd have to rewatch the episode. But they're talking about, particularly in America, particularly modern day Republicans who right aligned Christians. I think it's an interesting time to talk about it. But, with their approach to things thus far, who knows how they'll handle it? Probably poorly.
Probably. Oh, sir, shall we move into the newsies? What we have of them?
I only have I've got one little update, which I think is funny. I'll read that first. And then I've got one story, and that's it, because it was a fairly major security breach of a file cabinet-sized hole in cabinet. So the funny one is that Karen Andrews, who is a Queensland MP and a member of the Liberal Party, when talking to the media this week, confirmed that the federal government would not be providing funding to the Adani coal mine.
Excellent.
Now she, in a typical blame Labor moment for the coalition, she pointed out is only because state Labor in Queensland have vowed to veto it. So there's no point in wasting time debating anything at a federal level when it's just going to get shot down anyway. So they're just backing away from it. So I'm wondering what that'll do for the Adani coal mine. I think the federal funding was mostly tied to rail transport of the coal.
I think so, yeah.
And I know that was something they tried to get other funding from China and stuff and failed. So, I'm sure. He's one of the richest men on the planet, so I'm sure he can afford it himself. But probably doesn't want to.
Well, if the figures add up, yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, I don't think the figures do add up. Coal is not the future, Frank.
No.
Trump's big on clean coal. He mentioned it in his State of the Union.
Bringing back coal.
Which I haven't got anything to talk about, but it did happen during the week.
I did listen to that. I can comment a little bit about that later on.
Yeah, I didn't prepare anything, but I did find it funny that the man is obsessed with coal. Must have had some bad Christmases as a child.
Apparently he doesn't like sharks.
Really?
Well, apparently he has a phobia of sharks and talks. That's what was coming out of the Stormy Daniels interview, was that he was talking about...
this is that porn star, right?
Adult entertainer.
Right. So adult porn star, as we discussed the other week. Yeah, okay. Who doesn't like sharks? I'm not.
I'm sure she's fine with sharks, but
I like
allegedly-
sharks. I don't like being in the same general proximity of sharks while sharing water with them. It's not that I have like a racial hatred of sharks. I don't. They're lovely and they're very handsome to look at. They're just not handsome to be face to face to because they eat you.
Well, not 99.999% of the time, I have no feelings whatsoever.
Yeah, I
concerning
understand.
sharks,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
anytime I'm in their immediate proximity, I have a heightened
Yeah.
dislike of sharks.
That's what I'm saying. Like when I'm swimming in the ocean, don't think about sharks. If a shark shows up, I'm probably thinking
Yeah.
negative things about
Yes.
sharks.
Very bad things about sharks.
Yeah.
Their immediate annihilation comes to mind.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that caught my attention. So, one of the things I do during the week, well, pretty much on a daily basis, is bring up Internet Explorer and type in Trump Twitter because I love seeing what someone who
What the press is up to.
who is the leader of the biggest power in the world. Tweets.
You know what's interesting? I think it might have been The Guardian or maybe CNN, say that Pax Americana was over and that Xi Jinping of China is likely the most powerful man in the world these days.
Oh, okay.
So the second most powerful man has been
second
tweeting.
most person who tweets like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And I get endless amusement from seeing someone who tweets like an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I think he writes it like he thinks it. It's very stream of conscious. So there's not a lot of complex thought going. I mean, I'd like to see him tweet about sharks.
He hasn't tweeted about sharks lately, but you'd have to go back to 2003 to see tweets about sharks. But so being drawn into Twitter to see what Trump tweets has made me sort of explore a bit more of Twitter. So I was looking at one of Sam Cedar from the Majority Report's tweets that said, "Watch this now," and it was Jimmy Kimmel. And I emailed this to you guys about how Jimmy Kimmel, it's a set piece, and obviously to some extent one might say it was contrived, but basically what he did was brought together 5 odd MAGA people who were vehemently against DACA, the Dreamers Act. So
Yep.
I think it stands for the Deferred something. Basically, it's to do with
1 out of 5.
illegal immigrants who were brought in as minors.
Yeah. So they were kids when they arrived, and they have aspirations towards becoming citizens.
Yes.
It wasn't their fault they came here illegally.
They've been here in
They've been here
a
most
lot
of
of
their
cases
life.
for 10 plus years.
Mm.
This is the only country they know. And I think under the Obama administration, they got a stay of execution,
Mhm.
basically, from being deported. And this has become a wedge point in recent politics in America, particularly with passing the budget. And anyway, circling back to Jimmy Kimmel, he decided to bring together 5 Republicans who were dead against DACA and wanted to see what represented a group of 700,000.
Were they all white?
Yes.
Because
There
it's
was,
funny to get 5 white people together and discuss why they're all against DACA.
there was one Latina and one African American woman, and the rest were white. So these DACA, the Dreamers, represent about a pool of 700,000 people. So what Jimmy did, he
in
brought
a country
in,
of 320 odd million.
yes, he brought in the MAGA people, and he brought in one case study of. It started off with. He brought in a woman who was originally from Mexico with her daughter, who would have been about in her early 20s, I imagine. And she presented her case, how she'd been a taxpayer working, she's got a young daughter here. And the MAGA people were adamant that she should go back to Mexico and reapply for citizenship through the legal manner. Then Jimmy Kimmel upped the stakes by bringing out her fiance, who was a man who was born and raised in America, and who was about to go and do a tour of duty in Afghanistan. And just seeing the interactions between a real life scenario between these MAGA people and how these people, even in the sight of a real people, were still won't send them back attitude. It was gross, obscene.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I very much subscribe to the idea that the American empire is dying, and a time will come when they will lose the immigration inflows, and they're going to, all of a sudden, all these jobs that these, Americans have never had to work themselves, cleaning, gardening, cooking, are going to not be done. And they're going to have to take, their economy is going to falter a bit, and they're going to wonder what's going on. And these people will be going to other countries. and I think they'll be desperate for immigrants eventually. But right now, yeah, they're not. It always makes me sad when you see Americans talk in that way. If you've ever been to New York City and you've seen the plaque at the front of the Statue of Liberty where it's, send me, you're tired, you're hopeless, you're weary. It's just a bit sad. They've gone from one attitude of we'll take, everyone, give them a fair chance because this is the place where land of opportunity, to where they are now, which is like, fuck off, we're full. Mind you, we're saying the same. Australia's doing the same fucking thing, so I have a hard time condemning Americans for it too.
No.
It's hypocritical of us.
Oh, I'm not impressed by what we do. And it's one thing to stop new people coming in. It's another thing where you're saying, well, people have been here for 20 years, we're tossing them out. Who tossing them out to a place that they have no real attachment to.
We do the same thing.
Yeah.
There was Peter Dutton has been kicking people out who have criminal records. Even though they came here as kids, they've never known their home countries that they're originally from. They've, arrived at 3 or 4, I think was the worst case example I saw. Yeah. And then just deported. Someone else's problem. He didn't arrive here as a criminal mastermind at 3 years old, Pete.
Probably it's
we kind of made him into that.
Yeah.
Now you're kicking him out like it's someone else's problem? That's a dick move.
Yeah. So that video was something that caught my attention in particular. I also watched via the Majority Report the State of the Union address, where it was little on content, a lot on guest speakers.
Yeah, weird that, isn't it?
VIP guests.
Yeah, normally the State of the Union is the president's opportunity to A, look and sound presidential, and B, sort of set the tone for what they're trying to do over the next 12 months. And Trump failed. Both of those for me.
Indeed. I mean, there was one where he was talking about a North Korean defector who slept on train tracks, lost limbs, and it's like going, that's a very sad story. What has it got to do with the State of the Union?
Yeah.
I'm not really seeing what your link there is.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as I think it's great that someone who wanted to defect from North Korea got out of North Korea, it's very hard to separate the person from the propaganda.
Indeed.
I'm sure there were people, being smuggled out of East Germany or into East Germany from West Germany. When you only hear one side of the story, and I'm not saying that Kim Jong-un's a nice person, but I don't fucking know, I very much know that the Americans tried to bomb the shit out of the country during the Korean War. They destroyed 75% of all fucking buildings in the country. They dropped more ordnance on Korea than they dropped in the entire Pacific Theater. I know these facts. So I can understand why Koreans, from the North at least, maybe don't like Americans. So I have a hard time when they go, this person in North Korea and he had a shitty time. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm sure he did, but I don't trust you because you have an agenda.
Well, the other thing is that the State of the Union speech is meant to be a macro level speech. Why are you getting into micro level, specific individuals? What relevance does that have to a State of the Union speech? Like, wow, yes, it's nice of you to present these war heroes, this ICE guy who arrests immigrants. It's like, yeah, okay, but we don't need you. Tell us about what's happening with the nation.
Yeah, I think I think that it would be good if the president celebrated real American heroes at a different time.
Yeah.
I have no problem with you talking about people that are doing a great job and highlighting some of the struggles people are going through to try and bring in some social change. That's not a bad thing to do, but it's not what the State of the Union's about.
Not what I thought it was meant to be. Anyway.
Yeah, it's. David Letterman has a interview with Barack Obama on Netflix called My Next Guest Is.
Yeah.
Really fucking good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Does he bring up some of the current issues with
Obama?
Obama?
Yeah. This is filmed after Obama stopped being president and got back from his holidays in Hawaii when he was... and it's just a really interesting reflection on modern day society and, a little bit about what's wrong with America. And it's just so saddening to see what they had, an intelligent, eloquent man to what they've got now.
Well, there's that.
A bumbling fool.
I still think Obama has a lot to answer for from his presidency. Number one, why he went down such an exhaustive path to get TPP. That made no sense.
Well, I would have thought number one,
as a representative of the
where's
people.
your long form birth certificate?
Yeah. Also, his persecution of whistleblowers.
Yep.
He had an abysmal record on that.
We're currently debating legislation in this country that would see whistleblowers serve 20 years in jail.
Oh, lovely.
In fact, anyone who prints or shares top secret or classified documentation would serve time in jail. So journalists too.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Don't do the truth if you can't do the time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have no problem with whistleblowers because if I'm not doing anything wrong in the first place, I would have nothing to hide. It's the same attack the government uses against me for a variety of things.
Yes.
If you've got nothing to hide, why do you need a VPN? All right, fair fucking point. If you've got nothing to hide, why do you need to persecute whistleblowers?
Yes.
Or have you got something to hide because you're an evil prick?
It is quite foul that politicians would want to go down a path of increasing punishments and imprisonment of whistleblowers because they felt embarrassed about something.
Yeah, totally.
So they're willing to put someone in jail because they felt embarrassed about a revelation. I don't know why you'd want that on your conscience.
Well, I figure if you're in a situation and you're making a decision and you're like, geez, if it ever got out that I did this, I'd look like a fucking evil twat. Maybe there's justification not to do it.
Yeah.
If you're worried about how it looks if it ever got out, well, it will get out. I guarantee you. Everything always does.
Mm.
And two, that's a good indication you shouldn't do it. If you're like, oh, people might think I'm evil, you might be evil, A. And B, because I'm assuming good people wouldn't have that moment of conscience where they're like, oh, someone might think this looks bad.
I wonder if we did a tally, brought the ledger book up in terms of what was released by whistleblowers, and on one side we had embarrassed politicians versus actual incidents that occurred from releasing this information. I think you'd see the motivations were based on the embarrassed politician sides of the ledger versus bad things actually happened because of the released information.
I think the government has the responsibility to act in the public interest, and if they're not, they need to be held accountable.
They don't like being held accountable, though. No, maybe. I mean, I don't imagine we'll see any change under Malcolm. Because definitely not.
It's his mob that are talking about this persecution. But
he's not a pioneer in these things.
No, he's not.
He's a pioneer on bad networks and internet technology.
In a way, he's a pioneer, but not in a good way. He's definitely pioneering a very similar to Tony Abbott's set of policies aimed at just being a dick to ordinary Australians and siphoning money to big business.
We don't even get the entertainment value we got from Tony Abbott from his policies.
No, but we also don't have to deal with Joe Hockey.
This is true. Yeah. We've still got Peter Dutton, though.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah, Dutton managed to save himself pretty good and grow a power base. If he was a Game of Thrones character, he would be Littlefinger, I feel.
A more stupid version.
Or maybe he'd be the equivalent of Davos Seaworth, the Onion Knight. He'd be Peter Dutton, the Potato Knight. I don't know.
No, they didn't really have a thick character in Game of Thrones. That's
Hodor, I guess, yeah. Maybe.
But people like Hodor.
Yeah, he could be like, Peter. All he says. Yeah, I don't know. Like, he's not a nice guy. Scott Morrison's also a vindictive shit as well. And George Brandis.
He's gone,
He's hit and miss. Yeah, he's Canberra's worst hidden secret.
Well, at least George Brandis had some very minor but redeemable features in some of the things he stood up for.
He did. He stood up for some stuff, and he was very good about it. But then there was other stuff that he...
Oh, he was terrible in a lot of other things. But there's not one nice thing I can attribute to Scott Morrison's reign.
No. There's not.
He was a horrible immigration minister, mediocre treasury minister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Treasurer, sorry.
I think being the treasurer must be quite hard because a lot of the times...
Especially if you're not smart.
Yeah, a lot of the times the people they put in that job, Julie Bishop, are put there because they're the deputy leader or because they're, in a position of power in the party, not because they have the financial acumen required to be in charge of treasury. It's
a coveted position.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Because often the treasurer goes on to be the leader of the party.
Yes.
Not always, but, obviously the big example there is Keating.
Mm-hmm.
I think John Howard was treasurer as well, wasn't he? But not a very good one.
No.
Prior to leading the party.
Unfortunately, we never really put our best financial minds in the position of treasurer. I mean, Wayne Swan was okay.
Wayne Swan is probably the best treasurer we've had in recent times.
Costello was okay.
Yeah. Costello was pretty shit, actually. He was really good
his outcomes,
at slashing and burning the budget.
But
we got a temporary surplus from a mining boom. I'm going to give everyone permanent tax cuts. and reduce the taxation base in a way that we'll never recover from.
But yeah, I mean, the outcomes from his reign weren't great. But I mean,
I do, however, enjoy anytime you have an interview with Peter Costello, he still has that shit-eating grin on his face, and there's something about the way he smirks that makes me just find it funny when he attacks people. I don't know. He's quite entertaining. He's like Christopher Pine in that regard. Someone I don't really like, but who I do find funny, and therefore endearing.
Mr. Fix-It.
Yeah, the Fixer is a very funny man. He's a bit evil. He's a bit good as well, though. You know?
Sometimes, yes. Once again, another one of those.
He's shades of grey.
Yeah.
If he was a Star Trek character, he'd be Captain Lorca. Before it's revealed that he's from an alternate universe. Yeah. That was a very long segue from Trump. But it works wonders because do you know what I want to talk about? What I want to talk about is, have you heard about the national security breach, the leak we had in Canberra this week?
No.
So, what happened was, after the government was getting rid of a bunch of furniture, so there was ministerial changes, Brandis was leaving, various other people were leaving, they decided to get rid of some furniture when people were remodeling offices. And they took that furniture to auction to sell it. Standard business, right?
Mm-hmm. Sounds reasonable at this point.
Amongst that was a set of filing cabinets that were locked and they couldn't find the keys for. So they just sold them. Now, they didn't sell at auction. They ended up going to a second-hand store in Canberra, and these filing cabinets were bought by a Australian man who lives out bush, and he'd come into town with a ute to buy some filing cabinets. He picked up a couple, and then the guy was like, look, if you're looking for filing cabinets, there's two out the back, but they're fucked, the locks, haven't got the keys, and they're a bit heavy, but if you can lift them into the ute, you can have them for $10. So he said yes.
Deal.
Done deal. So for $10, he got these two filing cabinets, which were locked. And
up until this point, no one thought to use a drill bit to get through it.
No one thought that these filing cabinets might be heavy because they are full of documents. They just thought they were heavy because they were made of metal.
Under the security of a $5 lock.
Yeah, under the security of a $5 lock. So he drilled them and then called the ABC when he found what was inside. What was inside was several hundred top secret and classified documents.
Fantastic.
That have come from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. Ooh. So it's Malcolm Turnbull's staff that are fucked up. Turnbull's obviously fronted the media to say that heads will roll. He expects people to be fired. So if his past record for the things he says becoming the things that happen follows, these people will keep their jobs. So Malcolm's not known for delivering.
He's not a man of honour who's going to take the fall because he's ultimately responsible. No,
he's blaming public servants. They need to go. So anyway, inside these cabinets were a number of interesting documentations that the ABC then published.
Oh, fantastic.
First, there's a couple of interesting stories. So firstly, John Howard's government seriously considered, although reneged at the last minute, to remove the right to remain silent. Specifically for use under terrorism cases, you would not have the right to remain silent. They could compel you to testify or find you guilty for not testifying. Seems like a dick move to me.
Scary.
Tony Abbott, when trying to set up the Pink Bats Royal Commission, that's not what it was called, but it's what I'm going to refer to it as, he ignored government advice as to certain documents that maybe shouldn't be released to the court because he felt that they would be damning to Kevin. Obviously, the Royal Commission in the end found no fault with Rudd, and it was a big waste of money. But Tony breached parliamentary, what do you call it? Not privilege. Anyway, he didn't ask for permission before publishing what people had said. He just released it all to the Royal Commission, which is what people were maybe going to be upset about. Confidentiality is what I'm looking for. Incidentally, comes to me after I finish the sentence. Further documentation was in these filing cabinets, releasing that Kevin Rudd had been informed that there were critical risks with the Pink Bats scheme. The ABC then received a notification from Kevin Rudd's lawyer that he was taking legal action against him for suggesting that he was aware that there were any kind of safety risks because he wasn't. They have since retracted the story. because apparently, although the documentation indicates that there are critical risks, Kevin Rudd did not know this, nor does it specify what those risks are. Just that the public service has identified there are critical risks that someone might want to know about if they ask a question. And no question was asked.
That was a very convoluted explanation there, and I'm at a loss to understand where I stand with all that information.
I don't know where anyone stands with that. This I found interesting as well. When the government was discussing what they want to do with Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act,
Which they're obsessed with.
They brought Andrew Bolt in as a consultant.
What?
Andrew Bolt is one of the very few people in this country who has actually been found guilty under that section of the Act.
Well, and he's one of the greatest legal minds in Australia, isn't he?
Obviously. Obviously, right? So Andrew Bolt famously was found guilty of racial vilification for suggesting that Aboriginals who looked white shouldn't be abusing... how did he phrase this? Basically, government assistance programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you were claiming benefits for being an Aboriginal and you looked white, well, that's ridiculous. You're not an Aboriginal. So he was found guilty of racial vilification, which seems fair, really. But they brought him in to talk about how they wanted to overhaul that. I don't know what happened with that in the end. I think that law just fell in a heap, didn't it?
It just didn't go anywhere in the end.
Yeah, well, that's a shame. Poor Andrew, born as a consultant, only to have his time wasted. No other twat deserves that more than him. There was documents from during the Rudd government time period when Stephen Conroy was communications minister talking about how they were going to finance the NBN and fund it. And in these documents, the government specifically laid out their plans to negotiate with Telstra by basically denying them any right to participate unless they're willing to concede to the government's terms for involvement. Now we know it didn't turn out like that.
No.
And we know the NBN is a clusterfuck, and Telstra are probably very happy that they're not
Telstra are
involved
big
with that.
winners of this scheme.
Yeah. There are details from Scott Morrison's department from when he was immigration minister that detail occurrences where he specifically instructed his secretary to write to ASIO to have them delay the processing of people's security clearances so they would miss the cutoff dates for their visas, for protection visas. Yeah, right? You know, we were talking before about Scott Morrison, no redeeming features, bit of a dick. Yeah, bit of a dick. So people who were coming here as refugees, he intentionally made sure they couldn't get visas. It was something like 700 people were affected by this.
Wow.
Also,
on the one hand, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But to see it come in the light of day of how underhanded someone can be. Yeah,
and again, right? And all of this is feeding into Malcolm's desire to now maybe punish people who are whistleblowers. Right. So the ABC were potentially going to get.
So who was the whistleblower in this scenario?
I don't. They haven't named him. They haven't named him. So
technically, there's been no whistleblower. Has there?
The agreement that the ABC reached with the government for the return of all these documents was that no legal action would be taken against anyone, and that the whistleblower would be protected. His name would never be released. Blah 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 blah.
But there was no whistleblower.
Yeah, no, there was. This guy supplied the ABC with the documents that are in the
yeah, but he wasn't working for the government. He just he legally bought a filing cabinet. He's not a whistleblower.
Yeah, true. You're right. He legally acquired these documents that the government had legally sold.
For the government's own incompetence.
Yeah, the government had sold it.
There is no whistleblower in this case.
Well, they've agreed not to take legal action against him, which is good. And his name's staying out of the press, as far as I'm aware.
That is quite a manufactured reporting of the story, because it'd be interesting to know what law he breached.
Well, he hasn't breached any, but he could retroactively be charged under the laws the government are talking about putting through at the moment.
Undoubtedly, but...
and so the final story I thought that was interesting was, this is back when Tony and Joe were running the country, and they had plans in place to prohibit anyone under 30 from receiving welfare payments of any kind.
Are you serious?
Yeah. That was one of the policies they were mulling over whether they should try and put up.
So what?
I mean, you got to remember that Tony and Joe were already at record lows of unpopularity with the youth vote.
Yeah.
And admittedly, this would probably damage beyond repair the coalition's vote for the future as well.
But even forget that. I mean, okay, so you're 25, you lose your job. What? Yep. Do you just starve?
You go back live with your parents. I know, right? Or you're a young single mother who's fleeing from domestic violence and you get no assistance.
Wow.
So you go back to being beaten.
They really considered that?
Yeah, apparently. So this...
Why aren't these guys brought back to the docks to explain this sort of crap they were
Well,
thinking
because Joe Hockey's the ambassador to America, so he's probably got some sort of diplomatic immunity.
That guy's a real asshole.
Yeah, he is. But look, this is one of the biggest national security breaches of all time for Australia.
There was no breach.
Well, yeah, but this is a leak of classified
It
documentation.
wasn't a leak.
I know. Well, it was.
They lost information.
They sold it. They sold it for the record price
Hold on.
of $10 to some guy.
When you delete your emails, that's not a security breach if someone finds what you deleted.
Yeah, well, this wasn't deleted so much as I'm
it's
a
physical deletion.
I'm astounded that when you're in an office, right, and you're throwing out some furniture, there's these filing cabinets that we can't open. Should we check what's in them? Nah, fuck it. Just get rid of them. Who cares? We haven't had to open them in a couple of years. Can't be anything in there.
No, a breach insinuates that either A, someone purposely manufactured a scenario to get that information releases, or an outside party forced their way in to take you. If you voluntarily give away information, that is not a breach.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Most of the information that was given away or leaked is from the Rudd and Abbott governments.
Yeah.
So maybe someone in the government just wanted to make Malcolm look a bit more, I
think there's some more direct ways to get to that
equally
outcome.
incompetent. It's not just Malcolm's not the only. He's just publicly incompetent, but behind the scenes, look at all this crazy shit people have been talking about.
Oh God. So I do remember hearing from the fringes this was reported as a breach. It's not a breach.
Yeah. I think it's also still being referred to as a leak by the ABC, I believe. The cabinet leak. Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't pass the pub test, does it?
I think it's too funny to pass the pub test. I can't imagine Malcolm was having a good day. I can't imagine Scott Morrison's having a good day.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that picking on immigrants is pretty popular in Australia, apparently.
I don't think anyone... To be honest, their base wouldn't have any issue with what Scott Morrison did.
Yeah, it's one of the more distasteful allegations in there.
Mainstream Australia likes the idea of, abiding by the rule of law. But when it comes to, shafting immigrants, they don't mind that so much.
Yeah, maybe. Look, I think, obviously, Kevin Rudd's probably going to try and defend his legacy a bit. I don't know if Tony's
He's a bit of a narcissist, so
don't know if Tony... he is. Rich narcissist, his wife's quite loaded.
Yes.
So he's got the pockets to do it as well. So I can see that. I don't know about Tony trying to defend his reputation.
I don't think it really tarnishes the reputation he has.
Yeah, I mean, with the Tony revelations of, trying to get the Royal Commissions into the home installation deaths.
No news there.
I mean, I feel like you could just say, look...
They've been banging that drum for a while.
And you could just say, look, people died, and I wanted to make sure the Royal Commission had all the information they wanted to make sure it was, that no one did anything illegal. I can see Tony being able to defend that and just go, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, true.
And then the one under Hockey where they were talking about, removing welfare, they didn't do it. So I can see Tony again saying, yeah, we've got a budget problem. As the Treasurer, it's Joe's job to bring me all of the measures we could do to repair the problem. And we said no. We considered this as a, what are all our options, Joe? Even the crazy ones. Bring them all to me. And I said, no, we can't do that. So I can see Tony getting out of this.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't even think he has to be that craven.
He's pretty craven.
He is very craven, but
he's not going to shirt front the ABC over it.
This is in his wheelhouse, and the people that support him like this about him. So it's like...
Yeah, look, I even bringing Andrew Bolt in to consult on the 18C racial discrimination, I can see that probably playing well with their base.
Once again, there's no news there.
Yeah. Look, but I found it funny. And there was several hundred more stories that are in there. But those
it's
are
funny. I don't think the stories themselves are any revelations. The story is the fact that no one could, get a $100 drill and drill it out.
Yeah.
To check what was in there.
I'm wondering if it wasn't just a case of bureaucracy gone mad, where they've lost the keys, but they know the documents inside may be classified or top secret. So they couldn't just call someone from maintenance who has a drill to come up and drill the locks, because they might, upon opening the drawer, see something they shouldn't see. So they had to so maybe there was this machinations going on, like, what the fuck do we do? I'll bring a drill in tomorrow myself because I have authority, blah, blah, and then they got removed.
You know, we've both worked in large organisations, and we can both imagine multiple ways this could have happened quite easily.
Yeah.
So that in itself is not a big
Yeah, no, I definitely could.
revelation in
I
itself.
definitely can. The number of times I have seen people, you know how you have those document shredding bins,
Yeah.
and then you just have the regular recycling bins.
Yeah.
The number of times I see people, and this is not just at my current job, but at every other job I've had, who just throw stuff in the recycling. They're like, I'm going to do what's good for the environment. It's like, that was a commercial in confidence tender you just threw in the recycling bin. It probably should have gone in the document shredding. that little watermark that's written on there that implies
Commercial in confidence. That should be shredded.
That should be shredded. I'm not going to call you out on it because I haven't had my coffee yet. And I don't want to have a long conversation with you about this. I want to get my coffee.
Yeah, this sounds like it might get into a confrontational situation.
Yeah, it sounds like it'll be a long conversation. I might not get a coffee. Is there some way I can get a coffee and
lecture you?
Probably not. Yeah. So no, good times. Anyway, good times. That I think that's probably the biggest story in the nation at the moment. I mean, it's just government ineptitude. I, for one, am glad the adults are in charge.
Yeah, it's adult government at its finest.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, to be fair, you can't blame the politicians for this. This is just, public administration. These things happen. But we can make fun of Malcolm Turnbull all the same. And, he's done a lot of shit we don't know about that. He deserves to be punished, so I'm quite happy to punish him on this.
Yeah, it's a shame nothing too onerous came out about him.
Yeah, funny that, yeah.
No documents from when he was the communications minister in charge of the NBN, for example.
Yeah.
Just stuff that was earlier.
If anything needs a royal commission, the NBN needs a royal commission.
That's what K-Rudd's advocating for. Maybe we'll get a Return of the Mac style moment where Kevin will, make shit happen. I'd like it to go down that way.
What, the royal commission or K-Rudd comes back?
The royal commission, but somehow engineered by Kevin Rudd, even from outside politics.
Yeah, having a legitimate royal commission into the NBN will never happen, unfortunately. I think there's too many people that would be embarrassed by that. Yeah. On both sides of Parliament. Yeah,
it is a real shame because I don't know if I talked this in the air before, but Dunedin in New Zealand has gigabit to the home.
Well, they did the right thing with their public telco.
Yeah.
And they had the ability to do the right thing with it.
They're on their way to basically becoming the Silicon Valley of the Southern Hemisphere. And that could have been somewhere in Australia.
Whereas, unfortunately,
we could have pork barreled that into Barnaby Joyce's electorate, for example, while he was having illegitimate children with staffers.
Which we haven't heard too much more about. But no,
it's February now, so she's due, allegedly.
Barnaby too.
Yeah. Baby Barnabas.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. Have you heard the latest rumblings, the continuing rumblings about... they want to do, it's not a report on 5G making NBN redundant.
Yep.
I'm sick of hearing that because that's nonsense.
I've heard this suggested, yeah.
Because 5G will only be awesome if there's a solid backbone behind it, a physical backbone.
Yeah.
What people don't realise is that it doesn't matter how wonderful 5G is, it has a physical limit of how many users can be on it. And it only works well when there's a good backbone behind it.
Well, and good coverage as well.
Yeah.
So when people talk about, mobile internet maybe one day replacing fiber optic, yeah, maybe it will in big cities.
Yes.
It's not going to in the bush.
Nope.
And even in big cities, it's not going to unless you have some significant fiber backbone connecting all of those cell towers back to central comms. But fine, say you do that in big cities, fine. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't provide people with the option to have dedicated fiber lines to their home.
Yep.
I would much rather have a hard line for most instances, because someone can't breach my network if they have to be physically fucking plugged in to my router.
Yeah.
But if it's a Wi-Fi, and let's be honest, the vast majority of all the Wi-Fi ciphers, with the exception of WPA2, I think hasn't yet been broken. Yep. But all the early shit's broken.
Yep.
People can crack it. And hell, most people don't really have very secure passwords, nor do they change them.
Well, and people forget about the physical clutter of cell phone towers.
Yeah.
If you were going to move, totally off a physical backbone, the amount of visual clutter you'd have from those towers. No one wants those towers on their house.
No.
But all of a sudden, you'd have to have them increasingly intrude suburban areas.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, look, like while I think that mobile internet is great, and look, let's be honest, I love my iPad as much as the next person.
Yep.
For watching YouTube videos, I love being able to just move stuff and have it come up on my TV. That's great. But I would never put anything I want to have in any way be secure accessible on my wireless.
Yep.
And it's not. But I guess most average home users don't do that.
No, and they hear a snippet on the news or in the paper about 5G surpasses NBN, and they all of a sudden think, oh, all this money that got invested in that fiber networks is a waste. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the current 4GX network you get from Telstra, which is 25 megabit a second, in many instances would surpass the service people are getting on the NBN because it's so fucking shit.
Yes.
Not because it's faster than 25 megabits a second, but because the wireless Telstra 4GX pretty much is always 25 megabits versus the NBN, which people are getting less than 12.
Yes.
I
think what
it shouldn't be the case.
No, not at
I mean,
all.
I have a guy I used to work with from Romania, and they used to get gigabit to the home for, I think it was about the equivalent of 30 Australian dollars a month. With reasonable ping times.
Yeah.
So it's definitely doable. We've just done a shit job of doing it.
We have. And our network's still salvageable. It's not like...
It's going to cost a bit to fix.
It will, but there's still good technology there. So the fiber aspects are great.
Yeah. The big problem they've got is the way they've partitioned it up into the various cells, or the CVCs, the virtual circuits. And the fact that providers have to buy allocations for 290 different circuits rather than, well, one would be good and then have it pooled across all your stuff. If you wanted to, I will buy this much across Australia, but whatever. Say you want to do it at state level, or you want to do like Perth City and then everything else.
So hold on, do they have to actually segment out their whole network and go, here I'll buy 50, over here I'll buy 200? That's not... Oh, that's insane.
I think there are 272 CVCs across Australia, which they have to buy capacity on.
Right. So, and basically...
And if you don't use it over here, you can't take that here. You get charged more. It's a fucking nightmare.
That's stupid.
Yeah. That was, I think, the ACCC that made them do that after the Liberal Party stacked it with people that supported their Murdoch empire, basically. I believe.
Right.
I can't back that up. I'm just saying that out loud.
No
one take that as gospel.
Where are we at? We're at...
I reckon we can wrap it up.
We can wrap it up. We're in an hour.
Technically, I'm out of notes. You're out of notes.
I'm tired.
You're out of wine.
I'm out of wine. Thank you for listening to the show. Ben Franco.
See ya.